And so early on, of course, I've had the dream, as many do. Oh, I want to be a writer someday. But that whole idea of someday, and right, and I joke about calendars a lot and how there's like Tuesday and there's Thursday, but there's no someday. It doesn't exist on the calendar. And yet that was my plan pretty much. That's when I was going to become a writer someday. And I couldn't find it on any calendar. And in a weird way, that was okay for me because I think I was scared to begin my dream of becoming this author. I was scared of really starting, of actually making a stab at it for realsies, right? Because if you start something, if it's no longer just this like secret dream, then you can fail. And I thought, well, if I don't start, I can't fail.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 336 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. You know, I was procrastinating about getting this episode put together. No, I'm not joking when I say that, but Bradley and I, and Bradley is the guest for this episode, we had been procrastinating doing the interview, and then I did the interview with him a couple of months ago, and of course, been continually putting it off. No, I was kind of waiting. I was waiting until I don't know what I was waiting for. And that's something that happens to us writers all the time. I know it's something that I suffer with. And, well, let's hear Bradley's biography. Did you know that before Bradley Charbonneau wrote his first book, he had written 0 books? He spent years dreaming and wishing, chatting and hoping, but not actually writing. Finally, after years of procrastination, he wrote his first book. And since that first breakthrough, he's written 34 more. Now, Bradley suffered through this, and when we talk about this, and you're going to hear that very soon, you can talk about how traumatizing it was, how painful it was for him to remember what that was like, and that's why he's dedicated so much time into helping other writers, because he understands, he gets it. Like me, potentially like you, he procrastinates. And he procrastinated, and he's found out some strategies and some techniques that have worked really well to remove the pain and to make it a little bit more fun and to figure out a way to get past that procrastination. And we talk about that and a great program that he has, and that's coming up later in this episode. But first, before we get into that, I'd like to say a word about this episode's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Findaway Voices, and perhaps you've already heard because it was just announced this week. This is the week of December 8th, 2023, but just this week, Findaway Voices announced that they're finally starting to accept AI or digitally narrated audiobooks. Now, they've been a holdout for a long time. They basically were not accepting any digitally narrated books. And I created my first digitally narrated audiobook, oh my God, 4 or 5 years ago now. But just this week, they have announced that they are accepting digitally narrated audiobooks. And there's some caveats to it. So obviously there's going to be a disclaimer because it's only clear, it's only fair for consumers that they understand what they're purchasing. So that they will all come with a bit of a disclaimer. They're only accepting digitally narrated audiobooks that were created with Google Play. And Google Play Books Partner Center has had some great tools that you can use to create AI narrated books. I know I created one for Wide for the Win, and I did it very specifically because I wanted to make that book more accessible, and I do have to spend the time to do that for more of my books, and that's because I didn't have the time to invest in recording that one myself, and I typically will pay human narrators for my fiction. But this is a great opportunity. So they're only accepting the files if they were created with Google Play Books Partner Center with their AI tools. And they're only going to Apple, audiobooks.com, Kobo, Barnes & Noble Audiobooks, Spotify, and then to the wholesale distributors, the wholesalers for libraries, I should say, Baker and Taylor, Biblioteca, and Overdrive. So that's quite a revelation in the industry. Also, this week, we're starting to see authors have been invited to Kindle Direct Publishing's own built-in audiobook digitally narrated tools. So we're seeing some significant changes in the marketplace, some changes in the audiobook marketplace. I'm excited because of the opportunity for more writers to be able to experience getting their books into audio for that audiobook consuming audience. It's just removing some of those barriers, and it is a huge cost barrier for authors. Again, changes in the industry. But one of the things that hasn't changed is leveraging Findaway Voices for your distribution. And you can use Findaway Voices to get your audiobooks into 43 retail and library platforms. Of course, they now will accept for a subset of a very small subset right now of those platforms who are accepting digitally narrated audiobooks. But you can load your books to Findaway Voices. And if you want to see how you can leverage Findaway Voices as a distribution platform for your audiobooks, you can check them out over at starkreflections.ca/Findaway. And just some comments from recent episodes. So over on Twitter, X, Brittlestar, thanks Brittlestar for retweeting my share of episode 334 with the comment reminding the tip of "don't make art for artists," a phrase that every creative should burn into their brain. And following up in the chain, Literary Artist replied to that and basically quoted from that same episode saying, if you're writing something in Waterloo, you want someone in Idaho to say, "This is the best thing I've read. I love it so much." And also reflecting on that episode was Edwin Downward. He had basically said, reflecting on the advice to not make art for other artists, so much to unpack with that little statement. But at its core, I see it as meaning create for a wider audience, those who don't need to be impressed. And thanks, Edwin, for sharing that. I agree with you on that. Creating it for a very specific audience, not necessarily other artists, but the actual people who are going to enjoy and consuming that. Other fun things on the Twitter sphere is Jay Thorne shared a picture of, it said, having a hard time focusing on my work today, and he posted a picture of himself reading The Canadian Mounted. I was talking to Jay about that in Vegas a few weeks ago, so that was hilarious. And then, of course, Kevin Tumlinson replied with, "Just remember those aren't pillows." And so that's kind of a fun one. I also got a lot of love for the Christmas tree. I was going to say that Liz and I built, but Liz built. So Liz builds a Christmas tree out of books every year, and I shared on Twitter as well as on various social media. I shared a link to her building the tree. I put that up on YouTube. I will include a link to that in the show notes because it's really amazing that she makes this tree out of books every year, and this year she did a time-lapse video of it, which is just an absolutely fascinating one. And final comment, and it's for the work I do on the Draft Digital Self-Publishing Insiders and the podcast, is Harley Christensen, who's just a genius at pulling quotes. Basically quoted, he was quoting, and I shouldn't say, this is from the Draft Digital blog. So what I did in terms of reduce, reuse, recycle, I told Alexis I would create a blog about, what if you didn't make NaNoWriMo, etc. So I wrote an article for that. I also recorded similar, so I basically first recorded that first draft, put that in as an episode, then I tweaked it and cut it down quite a bit for the blog for Draft to Digital in hopes to help more writers. And so that way it was out in audio, it was out on a blog. But Harley quoted from that article, which is called "So You Didn't Win NaNoWriMo." See, it was a lot softer on the Draft Digital side of things. And again, it's a slightly different approach when it's not your own specific brand. I'm a lot more cautious and careful when it's a corporate brand that I'm representing when I'm out in the world. So I'm a little bit more professional, or a little bit less not intimate, but I kind of scale it down a little bit. And anyways, it's a long way of saying Harley quoted me and quoted that article saying, completing a journey of 1,000 miles begins not just with that single physical step, but the internal step that is first taken when you commit to making that journey. And thanks so much, Harley. I really appreciate the way that you pull quotes from so many different podcasts and blog posts and articles. So helpful for writers. So if you're on X/Twitter and you're not following Harley, I strongly recommend that you do. I'll include a link to Harley's tweet in the show notes over at starkreflections.ca. And that's a huge thank you to everyone who shares and comments and interacts. And I love hearing your reflections on what you're thinking about, what you're reflecting on, of course, when you're listening to the episode, or tangential related to the episode topics as well. And I'd be very curious to get your thoughts on procrastination after you hear this great interview with Bradley. And of course, before we get into the interview, I just want to leave a huge shout out to everyone who supports this podcast over at patreon.com/starkreflections. I do appreciate your patronage and your support. Of course, not everyone is able to contribute financially, so your support in just listening to the podcast means so much to me, because actually downloading the podcast helps me a lot, which is fantastic for my sponsors. You can also share on social media, share your own reflections, or share links to episodes that you think people that you know would find value in. So thank you guys so much for listening. I'm about to cue the bumper, and we're about to see no more procrastination. About to cue the bumper and about to get into this interview with Bradley Charbonneau. Bradley, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into the topic at hand today, just give my listeners a little bit of a background on who is Bradley? Where did Bradley's writing life sort of start?
Wow. Well, I know you talk to a lot of authors. I'm sure you have, we should put a time limit on this. You want the 3-hour option?
Well, give it to me in the 5-minute version.
Give me the 1-minute version. Well, okay, I've got the sweetest, most lovey-dovey, awesome story, and that was when I live in Europe now, and I live in the Netherlands, which is actually behind me there, the Utrecht. And I've always been fascinated and in love with Europe, and I've always wanted to live here. And I've lived here many times, and I'm finally living here again. And when my first real experience here was, I did junior year abroad in France, and this is a long time ago. I'll just put it this way: it was a long time ago.
Born, right?
I am American born,
okay.
as you noted earlier, French Canadian and French last name. But me, born California, total California boy growing up. But then my first eye-opening experience in my life was when I was 14 years old, and my parents dragged me and my sister to Europe. And we absolutely didn't want to go. I wanted to go to the beach with my bros and get a tan. Right. That was important stuff in my life. But then I don't know, my eyes just exploded when I got into Europe. So my goal ever since I was 14 is just, how do I get back to Europe? I just love it there. I just need to live there. I want to be there. I went back as a student. I went back to work. I did internship programs. I did exchange student programs. I did everything you could think of. And so, but my writing really started when I was a junior in university, and I was living in Montpellier in the south of France. And remember this pre-internet, right? I'm literally writing by pen, and here's how dated this is. And it's the blue airmail paper.
Oh,
right. I know it's practically transparent stuff, where if you write on both sides, you can't even see it anymore. And of course, I'm a student, so I have no money I can't even pay for stamps. Well, okay, I can pay for stamps, and I'm writing. I would write, I'm no exaggeration, I would write 50 page letters to my parents at the time. and it's weird if I think about the writing, who I am as a writer, and also even coaching writers, and say, oh, who's your audience? And honestly, I think after all these years, I think the important part is the audience. It's got to be at least partly yourself. I was probably writing more for me. I was probably even writing more to me than to my parents.
Right.
But it was important for me to write, important for me to get it out. And ever since then, I've been writing ever since, and I've never stopped. And later, just the difference was I would hit publish, right? Then I'd lick the envelope and send it to my parents, and then and now I just hit publish. But I've never stopped. And I think the key is who is your audience, and can you write for yourself, and are you okay with writing for yourself as an audience?
So you were writing by hand, writing stuff to parents, but like we seem to have skipped a whole bunch between that writing letters to your parents and then hitting publish, right? Was there any time in between?
Yeah,
that?
for sure. A lot. In fact, so the writing by letters did that for a long time, but then finally, and so early on, of course, I've had the dream, as many do. Oh, I want to be a writer someday. But that whole idea of someday, and write, and I joke about calendars a lot, and how there's no day. There's like Tuesday and there's Thursday, but there's no someday. It doesn't exist on the calendar. And so, and yet that was my plan pretty much. That's when I was going to become a writer someday, and I couldn't find it on any calendar. And that was in a weird way, that was okay for me, because I think I was scared to begin my dream of becoming this author. I was scared of really starting, of actually making a stab at it for realsies, right? Because if you start something, if it's no longer just this like secret dream, then you can fail.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if I don't start, I can't fail. Safe, right? Safe road. And yet, so that lasted, I wish it were not so many years of playing it safe. And I often call it coming out of the writer's closet. I didn't come out of the writer's closet for years. It was like the secret dream of mine. I would maybe tell a handful of people, but I think I was, because that was my big dream. And if I tell somebody, then I have to act on it. And I think I was too scared to act on it. So I just kept it to myself for years and years. Sad. Wow. Ouch. It hurts.
What was the breakthrough book where you actually came out of the writing closet?
So it also has to do with personality again. I'm very stubborn. That's the negative word. You can call it determined, is the positive spin on that. I'm determined and persevering, right? Yeah, great. But I said, I can do it on my own. I'm strong. I'm superpower, right? I don't need anybody else. I don't need anybody's help. Go me. And that clearly didn't work. And so finally, somebody I had whispered my dream to in 2012, right? Many years after writing letters on airmail paper. 2012, I'm living in San Francisco. I own and run a sort of marketing business. Life is great on the outside, but inside I'm kind of slowly dying because I'm not writing. So I finally told this guy, a friend of mine, and at that time, he had a program called Monthly Experiments, where you do something for 30 days and you learn to create a habit, right? And you do like no caffeine for a month, or wake up at 5 a.m. for a month, or whatever, some crazy thing. And he says, oh, Bradley, man, I didn't even know this about you. We're going to do one for you in November 2012. We're going to do write every day for 30 days. And my first thought is fear. I thought, no, wait a minute. This goes against my whole idea of hiding from the world and not really starting so that I don't fail. John Muldoon, John, if I start this thing, that means I actually have to really do it. And that means I could fail in the future. And he didn't listen to any of this stuff. He's like, I don't care. We're going to do it for 30 days. So finally so in other words, the breakthrough was somebody inviting me / pushing, inviting me to a challenge. And that's why also I'm very much I like challenges. I to this day, I like challenges because I now see the power of having somebody else invite you to get over your fear and try and break through. Because going it on your own, yeah, I don't know if I ever would have gotten through it on my own. I'm sorry to say, but
Wow.
Yeah.
No, this is fantastic. I mean, in all the conversations that we've had, we've never talked about this. So this is
Yeah.
awesome. So thank you so much for sharing. So what I wanted to talk to you about was I wanted to talk to you about this concept that you had shared maybe what 3 weeks ago
Yeah.
with a bunch of us in a smaller writers group, and you had shared it, and
Yeah.
I wanted to share that with my audience. So can you talk a little bit about what it is? And obviously you're probably going to talk about how it came to be, because I think that's also a fascinating story too.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So it's so related, of course, to what we were just talking about. And so now fast forward 2023.
Okay.
I had my 10-year anniversary, right? Of that moment. I remember the day. It's November 1st, 2012. It's so clear. And then remember November 1st, 2022. And I actually did another challenge, by the way, November 1st, 2022. And I did a YouTube video every single day for 30 days.
Okay.
And the perseverant, stubborn guy that I am, I'm actually still going on that streak.
Every day.
So every day, a short 15-second short YouTube.
Wow.
It's great practice. I have a chapter in one of my books called Practice is Perfect. Not practice makes perfect. Like perfection is, this not even real thing potentially. But if the practice is your perfection, then your goal is to practice. And so I'm very much a believer in like write every day or do whatever. Some of my books are about habits. So at 10 years later, and as of a few days from now, I will have published my 35th book, right? Like 35.
Okay.
So clearly the floodgates opened back in 2012. I didn't immediately start writing so many books, but I wrote. And so in fact, I wrote every day for 30 days. And then I wrote for, this is going to sound crazy, but 2,808 days in a row. It's like 7+ years. And because I'm a techie dork, yeah, I actually hit publish. So those weren't even, I came way out of the closet. I wasn't even just writing for myself in my journal or something. I published every single one of those. They are to this day, they're on my bloggy website, right?
Wow.
So I clearly just needed the dam to be broken open, and I just needed to share my words with the world. So of course, now having written 35 books, all these days in a row, I'm a prolific writer. I'll never stop writing. And so of course I get the question, hey, Bradley, how would I write a book? And the one that kills me is, I get this, I don't know how often, but, oh, I have a book idea. And it kind of makes me cringe, or I get a little bit of twinge of pain because I think back to me at whatever, 21 years old. And I think, yeah, I had a book idea too. And I held it inside of me for so long. And I know from painful experience how awful that can be. And so one of my sort of big goals in life is to shorten that pain time span for people. There's another word I really don't like, regret. I've had a lot of parents and family die in recent years, and it's a big item, right? Regret. What do you regret? And not just when you're on your deathbed, but at any certain age or milestone in your life. What do you regret not having done? And so I don't like regret. I try to avoid regret. And how do you do that? It's usually taking action. It's usually getting over a fear or doing something that, well, back to the calendar idea of that someday on the calendar that of course doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's just like tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't exist either. So with all of this, I got a lot of requests for, hey, Bradley, can you coach me writing a book? Can you help me to write this fantastic book? I want to write the greatest book ever. I want to write my best book ever. I want to write this magnificent masterpiece, 318-page manuscript from the heavens that's going to win all these awards, and I'm going to make $1 zillion a minute, right? So massive, massive, mountainous dreams. And at first I'm like, sure, of course I'll help. And I did, and I realized that the mountains of dreams that were so big, and maybe we would accomplish them someday, again with the someday, but I thought, wow, it was more procrastination and struggle, imposter syndrome, self-doubt. Just take your pick of our limiting beliefs, and they would all be just take a little cherry pick or a la carte or have the full menu if you want. And we weren't finishing this big important book.
Right.
And so at some point, and in fact, really recently, I've been doing more comedy. I've been doing improv comedy, and next week I start a workshop in stand-up comedy. And I really enjoy humor, and I also think that humor, we can only get to humor when we are at a place in our lives of a certain lightness, right? We're not so funny or even creative. Here we are, creative authors and stuff, when we're in a down place or a bad place, or frankly, like a serious or too professional place. I think if we can get to humor, then we can let that good stuff sort of comes out.
Right.
So, funny guy that I think I am, I was looking for a twist on how can I help these people get this serious book done, this big important book they want to get done. And I'm mostly a nonfiction writer, so I'm mostly helping people with nonfiction. But I truly think, as you and I briefly discussed a few weeks back, I think this technique I have, this sort of philosophy, could definitely work for fiction too. In fact, I think fiction might even be more fun. But this idea of this great big giant mountain that you are going to hopefully ascend someday before you die. I have a new tricky, fun, silly game plan to accomplish that will help you with that real book down the road. And this idea, I'm big on time limits and deadlines. And so, yeah, just like the 30-day thing, right? Write for 30 days. In fact, I'm still a big fan of write for 30 days. Great, just write for 30 days. No rules, no nothing. Yeah. Write for 30 days. Almost guaranteed you'll have some, even if it's an itsy bitsy transformation. So I like this limited time span and then accountability. So and I've got it down to a weekend. I've got a program down to Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and we're going to have a book in a weekend. And so if you're listening or watching and thinking, wait a minute, Bradley, weren't you just talking about like big mountains and magnificent masterpieces and stuff? Yeah. Like, how in the world am I going to get that done in a weekend? And so this is where the twist comes in. The weekend book is the opposite book you think you should write. So you've got your real book. And here, I'll take an example from a colleague of mine. And he had this book about, is very businessy, sort of about business processes or something. And it was called Simplify. And he had been working on it for 2 years. And he's like on his third editor. And he's on revision number 412. And I talked to him, like, he's just never going to get it done. And so I talked with him about this idea of, okay, hey, what would be like the opposite book? What would be the book where you say, oh, I definitely should not write that book, right? And so it could be like just a twist on it, like the 180 twist. And we're on a Zoom call just like this. And just in a matter of seconds, he's like, oh, complicate. It's called Complicate. His other book is Simplify. And he says, oh, it's called Complicate. And I'm like, oh, you got a subtitle for me? Within seconds. And his face is like lighting up. He's like bright. He's like laughing. He's cheery. He's fun. Because when we talk about his serious book, he's like, yes, my professional serious book, 2 editors, 5 revisions, outline. And you could just tell his whole personality changed. And with this idea of the Complicate book, he had like a subtitle for me. He said, oh, I've got the first 3 chapters in my head just now in a matter of seconds. And so by lightening this mood, by relieving the pressure of this magnificent masterpiece, that I'll absolutely help you get there. But I think by breaking through the dam of our limiting beliefs and writing this sort of silly parody book, but really finishing it. It's not just the thought of it. It's not just, Complicate, that would be great. Right. Nope. And not, Bradley, I believe you, but I'm not really going to do it. No. We're going to do a cover. We're going to do a title. We're going to do a subtitle. And we're going to have I've got a little format, at least like 3 to 5 chapters. And it'll be super short. The writing of the book will be super fast. I mean, I literally wrote a book 2 weeks ago as an example of this whole process in 2 hours. Okay. And in the book, you'll love this. It's called Procrastinate. And it's all about the positive aspects of procrastination
Oh, it's
and why.
awesome. You always have something to do tomorrow, right? And nothing to do
Oh, wait,
today.
I even have. Right. My opening quote. It's one of my. I really like quotes, and so one of the quotes in my procrastinate book is from Mark Twain, and it's like, oh, I'm going to forget it. It's something like, "Why put off until tomorrow what you could put off until the day after tomorrow?"
I love that.
So, so because I'm all about, as you can imagine, with this history of me, and yes, procrastination was a huge factor in all of that. I was procrastinating because of the fear, and so my opposite book, my 180-degree book, my book that I really shouldn't be writing, is called Procrastinate, and I wrote it in 2 hours, and I have a cover, and the cover was just immediate. I have a couch, right? There's like this red couch because that for me is procrastination, like binge watching, all weekend or something. And you're going to sit on the couch. You're a couch potato, so you're gonna procrastinate. But I twist the whole thing, and I say how positive it is to procrastinate. And I have some bonuses, by the way. I have the procrastinator's planner, and it's a calendar, and you can print it out. And on the calendar, it has days that normally in the non-procrastinators world, they don't have these days. I have a day called someday. I have a day like there's Tuesday, Wednesday, then there's like never. When are we going to do that? Never. Put it on the calendar. Put it on the calendar. Never. And tomorrow's on there too. So I've got this beautiful calendar. That's one of the bonus items. And I even have it's not a to-do list, but it's a not to-do list.
Okay.
And so we're gonna check off all these things that you're never gonna do. And that's great because then you check them off and you're like, oh, now I did it. I proved to myself that I never have to do this thing. And so the whole idea of the book in a weekend, it's really like a psychological twist where we're getting over our professional selves. We're getting over our serious selves. We'll get back to that serious self, sure, but with a bit more lightness and also a sense of accomplishment. Because I'm not kidding about this. We're going to get a title and a cover and a subtitle. We're actually going to do it. You are going to finish your book by Sunday evening. And then especially for soon-to-be writers who have never written a book, because that first one is really the dam break book. Right? We're going to break through the dam. And then once you can break through the dam, I mean, just imagine like the dam breaks, right? And then all the water flows easily and you're in your little boat or your big boat or your sailboat and it just whoosh. And after that, I can almost guarantee you your real book or your second book is going to be easier now that you have finished your book in a weekend.
Oh my God, I love that. I absolutely love that concept. So you have a book about this, right?
I do. I do, yeah.
But you also have a course. You have like a participatory, like what you had done.
Yeah. Yes.
With
yes.
Your colleague who did write the real book and finished it right after doing the silly one, the parody one.
He has still not finished his Simplify book.
Oh, really?
Which kills me to no end. And but he was having so much fun. I just got a note today from a student who said, Bradley, this is a really dangerous project you have me on because I'm having way too much fun with my opposite book. But he's just going off the rails.
But there could be something there in the opposite book, not just as a dam breaker, but that opposite book could actually be of value to a different audience potentially.
Yes. Well, in my book, Procrastinate, I hadn't thought about this before Book in a Weekend because I was just going to write my opposite book.
Yeah.
And by the way, little fun fact here, I couldn't hold, even me, I'm like this program creator, and I tried to write the whole Procrastinate book as the character of the procrastination, right? So I'm trying to say procrastination is great and not the not to-do list and stuff and the calendar and all that good stuff. And I write about how I even have, this is kind of fun, I have money-making ideas for procrastinators. I get way wacky in the book. It's super fun. But then I have to say, so I have this structure, and in like chapter 4, it's sort of why you are the person to be writing this book, right? sort of as a nonfiction author will do. And I fell out of character because procrastination was such a deep pain for me that I had to go out of character and talk about how procrastination has been such a struggle for me, and how I kind of want to come out of character and give the real story. So this, again, with the dam breaking, it might break in different ways. Like it might break and then you write your real book, or it might break and like I literally had these ideas for these bonus ideas, the procrastinator planner and the not to do list. Oh, by the way, there's also a community, like a support group for procrastinators, and we meet never.
Yeah.
We just don't ever meet. Put it on your calendar. Never. That's when we meet.
Oh my God, I can't wait to the next meeting. I can wait. I can wait. Oh man.
So I get the question also. People say, Bradley, we're talking about book in a weekend. They say, Bradley, I'm not funny though. And I tell them, I said, I almost can guarantee if you twist your real idea on its head, if you turn it 180 degrees and just write a few chapters in that persona of this opposite perspective, if you don't smile the whole weekend, if you don't laugh like once, I will give you your money back, right? Because I have not met a person who has their idea and then not like this big old grin, because it's like we're being devious, right? It's like we're a little kid and we get to, like, I don't know, put the spinach into blender and put a whole egg in. I don't know. We get to like do what we're not supposed to do.
Right.
And yet that's the goal, and the goal is to have fun. But remember, I'm a stickler for finishing. I really want you to finish. And so, but you have to ideally keep in persona of this opposite book. And you're going to laugh, you're going to have fun. And like you said, Mark, it's possible that this book is a real thing. I'm literally publishing Procrastinate on September 17th. It's on all the platforms. It's out there.
Cool.
And it's, who knows what it'll do. I mean, I'll probably get some like hate mail, like, oh, I'm a serial procrastinator and I hate it and your book sucks.
You're an enabler.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm gonna put on my calendar to make sure I check out Procrastinate. But what I will definitely do, and I'm not going to procrastinate about this, is I'll include a link to it in the show notes. That's Dark Reflections.
Great.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the course that you do. It's an online course, but you also have different components to it, right?
Yeah. So I'm so passionate about wanting you to get started and not suffer the years I suffered of being in the closet as a writer and not letting out what you want to let out. And it's really just put that real thing on the shelf for a minute and let's do a fun thing. And with some tactics that an author of 35 books, I've been there, I've done that. I've got some tactics and techniques to help you get there. So yeah, I have a program. It's fully thought out based on 9 years of pain. And we're down to Friday. It's clarity, courage, and confidence. Clarity is Friday, courage on Saturday, confidence on Sunday.
Right.
So it's Friday evening is the clarity. And there's 3 sections, and it's gonna be get the clarity on your goal for the weekend. Saturday it's gonna sound like the hard day. Actually, Friday was the hard day. Getting clarity on your idea, but hey, you only have the evening, so clock is ticking. You're gonna get it done. Saturday is create day. So the courage, right? The courage to actually write your book. So I'm not kidding. We're going to write your book in a day. Remember, I'm talking about a few chapters here. And if there are people listening,
you're not talking about a 400-page book, right? I'm
not talking about a 400-page book. I am not joking. It could be a 4-page book.
Yeah.
And that's where also I get a lot of pushback. Like, that's not a real book. And I say, just finish, please. Just finish, and we'll talk about what your real book is. I really want you to write your real book, but I want you to write it not someday. I want you to write it sooner than that.
Right. Yeah.
And so it just, I mean, this book Procrastinate comes from the heart, right? Procrastination sucks, right? As jokey as I am about it, procrastination is painful. It hurts. So that's where the humor comes in, and I'm being humorous about it, which is, in a weird way, it can be fun. It can be therapeutic to twist humor into your real thing. So back to the course. So I want you to be able to do it as fast as you can. So I definitely have a do-it-yourself option. It's all there. It's all I have. I literally have checklists. I have sort of inspirational, motivational videos where I walk you through the steps. I tell you. So here's the fun part of it. I walk you through absolutely everything you need to write a real book.
Okay.
I give you free formatting software. I tell you how to submit to. We're not necessarily going public yet. We're going to use a tool where it's a distributor where, as you know, Mark, you can get your EPUB and your PDF and distribute that. And so I go through all the steps to start and format and write and then even distribute your book in a weekend by Sunday evening.
Wow. And
so
can I do this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays if my weekend is?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Because I have a different weekend from everyone else.
Great.
Okay.
But
right.
I do like the idea of just a few days. I just had a guy in the program and he said, Bradley, I want to I want to expand and I'm like, what day are you on? He's like, oh, 10. Like, you're thinking too much. This is going to be a quick, fun thing. And we're going to get it done. You want to spend 10 days? Write 2 books.
Okay.
Or spend that on your next book. But I also am, if I were all being master of time, space, and dimension, I would enforce every human on the planet has to write a book every single year.
Right.
Because I think the persona that we are in 2023 is not the same that we were in 2022, and it won't be the same as we are in 2024.
Right.
And so, of course, writer guy that I am, I think, and again, with this therapy, I think, and also sort of along the lines of my mother and her, she would make a photo album every year. But I think writing a book every year, it's a bit of a timestamp of us, who we were that year. And I don't even mean to publish it. I just mean it could be a book.
Just to write. So let's go back to the online course.
Yes.
DIY, I can do it on my own time. Well, I can do it someday. No, I can do it on my own time ideally over a 3-day period. And there's got to be a cost to this, right?
Yep. So we'll put the links below. We even have a coupon called Mark, M-A-R-K, for 25% off. Look at that. And Mark, you'll have a link below. And then, so other options real quickly, to do it yourself. I'd love for you to give it a shot on your own, just because once you'll get through my process and you'll see that it doesn't have to be so difficult, which is kind of my entire philosophy.
Yeah.
I want you to get it done quickly. And then, and also another idea is come back and do it again. Do it yourself first.
Yeah.
And then let's do it together as a group. I've run like 4, this sort of Corona time, so we had a lot of online, but 4 online group accountability, 14
so
people
like
are doing this whole thing together.
Right? Where
yes, that would be a specific timeline.
Right.
Yep. And so for that, we'll put together dates and stuff when there's the right amount of people. It also gets into time zones and stuff. So there's that. Then my dreamland, and this will be soon, is
another day not on a calendar. No.
I know. You're right. You're right. I've got to adjust my calendar. And then there's in real life 3-day in person.
Oh, like where you're actually in a setting together physically where you can poke and touch you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because I'm a big fan of retreats, of weekend retreats. I love them for anything from like spiritual to writing to book marketing. That's all wonderful. But I really like when at the end of the retreat or the workshop, you have like a finished thing.
Right.
And so here you've got your book in a weekend. So and so of course, again, Dreamland is, in exotic locales with, palm trees and stuff.
Right.
And then if you really want my help one-on-one, I'm happy to do this one-on-one as well. So the variety, do it yourself, in a group online, in a group in person, or one-on-one.
Seems like there's probably varying costs based on the complexity and the intensity of that.
Yeah. It'll all be at the link you send.
Oh, it's going to be at the links as well. So well, see, now I'm intrigued. Because I mean, as many writers have, as I have. I was going to point at the whiteboard that's no longer on the wall over there. It's on the floor as we're in the process of renovating the office. But I still have a bunch of these nonfiction book projects that are like, yeah, I'm going to write this one day, and this I'm going to write someday, and this I'm going to write in the future, and this one I'll write soon. And so,
You just added days to my calendar. Hold on. You have
so I
one
am
day and
going
soon. One day and soon.
to look at, hey, doing the DIY version of this with one of those books, but of course, obviously take the opposite approach and see what mayhem and fun can be born out of that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You know, it's so funny. We haven't even talked about this, and I'm so excited about Book in a Weekend that I forget to even mention this. But I actually do have a program for the real book. But boost your brand with a book, and hire me, and we'll work on it for 3 months, and we'll do your real book. And I'm kind of poo-pooing it here like it's no big deal.
Yeah,
it's super important, and that's like the real deal. But I truly believe in like the lightness and the humor and the breakthrough element of this Book in a Weekend is so fun. And also, if you like my style, and I'm really light and fun and funny, and we're gonna have a good time, but I'm really serious about getting stuff done. So go do Book in a Weekend. And if you want to move on to your second real book, sure, I can absolutely help you with that as well.
And that's the boost your brand with a book, right? Like that's
boost your brand with a book.
Yeah, and that's the one that's the here's you had the fun one that you did. We've broken the ice, we've broken the dam. Now we're ready to work on this big project that was seemingly overwhelming before, right?
Exactly. And in fact, I'm to the point where if you just come straight to me and say, Bradley, I want to skip the Book in the Weekend thing. I just want to hire you for Boost Your Brand with the book for the real deal for 3 months and loads of money. And I'm going to say, I'm almost to the point where I want to make it mandatory that you have to do Book in a Weekend, because I think it's going to help you. It's going to help me. It's going to help us for the real book, because going through this process of these real steps, because we're writing a book still, right? We're still doing a book. Right. It's just going to be fast and quick and fun, right? And so getting it all done quickly is going to help you on your real book.
Okay, so let me go back to something that you said, and you kind of said really, really quickly, and it was, maybe it's 4 pages. That is a book. So why? How? Let's talk about that definition of what that is. I mean, what is that book when we think about it?
That's an excellent question, because I get that a lot as well. And this is where I think the definition of book has changed, or can be changed, or could be changed for this program. Because what is a definition of a book? Does it have to have a certain number of pages? Like, is there a law somewhere that we can look up? I don't know. But also, if you think about this as an ebook, and if you look at your e-reader, your e-reader doesn't have like a thickness, right? It's not like it's not like your e-reader expands because you got hefty thrillers in there. And so, especially for the one who's stuck, the one who's procrastinating, that's where this short idea, and really in a weekend, we're not going to write a 400-page book, right? I don't even want you to. I'd rather have this shorter, and it's also shorter can be more difficult. I mean, Winston Churchill said, I apologize for not writing a shorter speech. I didn't have time, right?
Yeah.
So I only had time, and that's why it's long. Why? Because of editing and all that stuff. So the shorter can be more difficult, but we're going to get finished. And that's where we're going to really take, if your story has 27 scenes, or your nonfiction book ideas, we're not going to get all 14 ideas. We're not going to do the opposite of all 14 ideas.
Yeah.
Ideally, we're going to pick one. Yeah. We're going to pick one really short one and nail it. So yes, I agree with you. Traditionally, no. The traditionalists would scoff at this idea that, Bradley, that is not a book. Bish, bish.
Well, I come back to a mantra that I learned early in the ebook revolution, like 2009, 10, 11, sometime in that realm, that an ebook does not have to be 300 pages bound between 2 pieces of cloth. Right, like that like in a lot of what we think of as a book, and in many cases, especially with nonfiction from traditional publishers, well, it has to be certain size to fit on the shelf because that's what's expected by the market. So it's
Right.
bloated with so much padding that's useless.
Yeah.
And it's just,
Yeah.
dude, you could have made the point, and you did in chapter 1. And all that chapters 2 through 10 are is you repeating
Yeah.
the same thing
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah.
So you can bloat it to 300 pages and they can
Yeah.
charge their whatever they had to charge. If the thought is a completely finished expression of
Yeah.
something that brings an
Yeah.
end and a conclusion, beginning, end, conclusion, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
encyclopedic, right?
Right. And to that point, like you said, beginning, conclusion. And so great. And back to that idea of your 14 points for your, magnificent
Yeah.
memoir. What? No, for the weekend, we're just going to take one or whatever, or three or something, but some finishable, manageable number. And like you said, ideally it has a nice little flow, beginning, middle, end, right?
Yeah. Wow. This is,
So
I think we need to come back. I need to have you come back on the podcast because there's so many other great things like, boosting your brand with a book and stuff like that. So
yeah.
that being said, could you please let my listeners know where they can find out more about you, and obviously where they can find, I think we'll have links in the show notes, but if there's any auditory, for those listeners who never go to look at the show notes, auditory things they can go check out.
Sure. Hey, I have an idea for our next podcast. We can talk about your opposite book, your book in a weekend.
Yes.
If you take one of your nonfiction ones and you finish it, and then we can talk about the process you did.
That'd be fun.
So
Yeah,
that could be fun.
That'd be part of it.
So we have a special link with Mark's coupon, affiliate link for Mark, and that is go.repossible.com/Mark, M-A-R-K. So that's go.repossible, that's the name of my brand, which is like possible again and again. So repossible.com/MARK.
I love that brand.
Go in the beginning there.
Repossible.
And my brand is repossible.com. You can find out me and more about all of my wacky ideas. Believe me, the more I write, the wackier I get. I think it's just, again, it's with the lightness and the humor. And I basically just want to, you know what I really want? I just want people to laugh. And you can laugh at other people. That's fine. Sometimes not. But I want us to ideally be able to laugh like at ourselves and with ourselves. And if you can laugh at yourself, that's a big step in confidence. And that's what this book is also partly doing. It's allowing us to laugh at ourselves and with ourselves. And if we can do that, then we're ready for book 2.
Oh, that's fantastic. Bradley, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
My pleasure. This has been super fun. Now I'm really looking forward to your book in a weekend, by the way. I want to see which opposite one it's going to be.
And I'm so glad we stopped putting off this interview. Okay, so we just talk about this at the end of the episode, but I do think it's so important. And this is going back to the book in the weekend. And again, when you think about a whole book in a weekend, I mean, it can be 4 pages. The whole idea is just getting that done. And yeah, I talked about a book doesn't have to be 300 pages bound between 2 pieces of cloth. And the fact that I think a lot of books that are published are basically over padded and fluffed up, filled with air that doesn't need to be there. Get to the point and move on, especially for today's modern audiences. But it's not just about the fact that, like, who says how many pages a book has to be? Who says this? That's an important aspect, yes, and Bradley and I did talk about that. But this is the more important part of it, I think, is the importance in this project, the importance in this book in a weekend, is picking a few days, sitting down and getting her done. And again, doing it in a way that removes the weird stress, removes that giant mountain of aspiration of this incredible thing that you've been dreaming of for years. Because it is terrifying when you do it. I get it. Trust me. I overcome it every single time I do a book. I have to. It's just there all the time. But because I've had these other books, because I've had these other projects that I've completed, that's really helped me. It's really helped remind me that I did it once, I could do it again. So there's this importance of actually completing or finishing something and going, oh, it wasn't so bad. That process wasn't so bad. And the world didn't end when things didn't go perfectly, right? It wasn't perfect. I got it done, and everything's okay. I made it through, and I think having that little achievement, having that, like finishing a short story, finishing, the 4-page opposite book that Bradley talks about, or whatever it is, that just finishing that, just getting to the end, just crossing the finish line and going, oh, okay, did it, it's done. I think that act in and of itself can provide an incredibly important and a powerful sense of accomplishment. It might give you the confidence, it might give you the boost, that might just be the thing that helps you with the bigger project. And so again, if I go back to the bird by bird, Anne Lamott, the idea of just doing it bit by bit, bird by bird, word by word, same idea is at play here, except Bradley's helping to show you that you can finish a project, but he's also showing you that, if you, not necessarily to stop taking yourself so seriously, but to actually have some fun with it and to see, okay, we're just rough drafting this and removing that terror, removing that fear so that we can get that out of our way and get into it. I love that. I also love when he talked about in November, he did the 30 days, write every day. He didn't say 1,667 words. He just write every day. It could be one sentence. See, so he changes the rules. He readapts it. Just like a book doesn't have to be 300 pages. He can say, yeah, I'm going to write every day. And he wrote every day for 2,808 days or whatever it was. He created a rule that allowed him to have a streak and allowed him to continue to do this and to feel the sense of accomplishment, but it wasn't a specific, very narrow focused word count every day that he had to do. So again, when you're thinking about those things, don't be afraid to readapt them into something that may work for you. And so I hope you like that reflection. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Bradley. Love to hear your own reflections about procrastination. If like me, you suffer from procrastination or you are a procrastinator, I'd love to hear what are some of the things that trouble you? What are some of the things that you've done to overcome your own procrastination, or what are the things you've tried that haven't worked as well? Love to hear those reflections. You can leave them over at the episodes at starkreflections.ca. You can at me on the social medias as well. But thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Until next week and next episode, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre wishing you, dear listener, great writing and good Stark Reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.